Okay, everyone, lo and behold, we're ready to start. Exciting. We're a little late, but let's get started. Short learning tonight. I think so, but always special. This week is Parshas Seitzei. It's got so many mitzvahs. And one of the mitzvahs that is mentioned in this week's parsha is that one should not wear wool and linen mixed together. The mixing of wool and linen, which we call Shatzes, that's why when we buy clothing, we usually ought to take it to check. We take it to a special laboratory where they do an inspection to make sure that there isn't any linen threads in a woolen suit or something like that in a wool dress. It's one of the prohibitions in the Torah. However, we know that there's an exception. The garments of the Kohanim in the temple, the Kohanim wore a belt, an avnate. The avnate belt was wool and linen mixed together. So too was in the garments of the high priest. The choshen, the ephod, all had wool and linen mixed together. But a regular Kohen only had it on his belt. That wool and linen were joined together. Another possible time in which something that is forbidden usually becomes a mitzvah is on the tzitzis. You're allowed to have, because the mitzvah of tzitzis, which is to have, which I think is also mentioned this week in the parsha. Yeah, this week in the parsha it mentions the mitzvah of tzitzis, to wear the fringes on the four corners of a garment. So tzitzis, the law about tzitzis is as follows: that you're supposed to make the fringes from the same material in which you have the garment itself. So if you have a polyester garment, you're going to wear polyester tzitzis. So it is, if you have a silk garment, you will wear silk tzitzis. That's the way it's supposed to be. If you have a woolen garment, you wear wool tzitzis. And if you have a linen garment, you're supposed to wear linen tzitzis. There's, however, one issue with that. And that is that when we have our tzitzis in its fullest form of a mitzvah, then in addition to the white strings, we also have one string dyed blue, psil techelas. Now the techelas, the blue dye, only works on wool. The white strings can be any type, whichever material it is. But the blue can only be a wool string. Now what happens if you have a linen garment? A four-cornered linen garment. So the law is you're permitted to tie on it, and you can even have the fringes all be linen. But that one string, that one piece of string will have to, which is going to be dyed with the blue wool, is going to have to be wool. So you're actually tying together wool and linen. The mitzvah comes the positive commandment of wearing tzitzis, and it overrides the prohibition of wearing shatnez. And one is allowed to do that. Today's days, it is not recommended. We don't do it. First of all, we don't really wear the wool, the blue, the tchelas. There are those today, based on certain scientific discoveries in Israel, that have reintroduced tchelas. You find a lot of people in Eretz Yisroel, Breslev Chassidim and others, that wear tchelas based on certain research. Others refrain from it until Mashiach comes. We're not exactly sure, for whatever reason, we don't do it. But even if you do wear tchelas today, you're not allowed to wear it on a linen garment. The reason we're afraid is because we're afraid a person will continue to wear it at night. The mitzvah of tzitzis is really only during the daytime, not during the nighttime. So you're only allowed to fulfill this commandment you're only allowed to override the prohibition of wearing wool and linen together only if you're doing at the time a mitzvah. If you're going to be wearing the mixture of wool and linen and it's not a mitzvah, for instance, if you're wearing it at night, then you are violating the prohibition and not doing a mitzvah. So in that case, it's forbidden, of course. So that's the reason why we don't allow that today from happening. Okay, that's the idea. In this discourse from the Tzemach Tzedek, to say it's a maimer, it's probably more like a reshima. Reshima means that the Tzemach Tzedek probably didn't say this maimer, he just took notes for himself. The writings of the Tzemach Tzedek. It's a different style a little bit. He brings lots of different sources, different ideas, and he tries to kind of, weave a tapestry from all these ideas together. So he gets into the root of this idea of shatnez. So the Silbash shatnez, so it says this week in the parsha, you may not wear shatnez, which is a blend, tzemer upishtim, of wool and linen together, yachtav together. So in Perek Aleph he brings, Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer, he brings in the Midrash of Rebbe Eliezer, Perek Chaf Aleph in chapter 21. In Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer, I have it over here. It says over there, it's talking about the early days of mankind. So it says how there were two brothers, there was Cain and Hevel. So here it says, V'hoya Cain oyev lavid adam l'zroya. Cain enjoyed to work the land. He was a farmer who worked the land. The Hevel hoya oyev liros tzoyin, and Hevel took to, and he had a feeling, a passion to be a shepherd, to work with cattle, with animals. This one gave work. Now, obviously, this was all exciting new professions then. No one ever did these work yet. This is the first people who were going to try out the earth. Farming. First one trying out working with animals. In any case, what they did was they were good brothers. They got along very nicely. This one fed the other one. I guess the farmer fed the Cain, who was from the farmer fed his brother Hevel from the produce from the earth, and he fed him back. He gave him from the animals. Now, even though the Mefarshim ask, how could he feed him from the animals? They weren't permitted to eat. They weren't permitted to eat meat yet until Noach. They were all vegetarian. So probably they say it means didn't give him meat, but rather he gave him milk, eggs from the chickens and things like that. So he fed him from his animals, even though it not the meat itself. Or there are those who want to say that it could be that it was prohibited to kill an animal, but if an animal died on its own, they didn't have the laws of shechita yet, so if an animal died on its own, they were permitted to eat that meat. Only they're not allowed to kill an animal in order to eat the flesh, which was permitted to Noach. In any case, this was going on nicely until what? They started to introduce religion. The moment they introduced religion, problems happened. I'm sorry. It came Pesach by night. So Adam said to his sons, Adam told his children, tonight, this is a holy night. This is the night that your children are going to offer sacrifices, carbon Pesach, Paschal lambs. This is a night for sacrifices. Go offer up a offering to your Creator. So Cain went along and he brought moiser macholoi, some leftovers from his food. Klioi zera pishtim. He brought flax seed. He offered. He took from his flax. Now, flax, in terms of the various different types of produce that you can grow in the land, flax is not the best of the best. And even, and you could have brought other things. or maybe the type of flax itself that he brought was not the highest quality. Vehevi Hevel, Hevel also brought, but he brought from the first, from the best of his sheep, and from the fatty ones, from the really good sheep. Kvasim, you can actually see it inside. Until now I was reading from here, but now from this part he's reading from here as well. Kvasim shaloi nigzazu latzemer. Sheep that were not sheared, meaning they were unsheared sheep, so they had a lot of hair on them, wool on them. V'nitav minchas Kayin. Cain's korban was rejected. V'nirtzeis minchas Hevel. Hevel's korban was accepted. Shenemar, as it says, Vayisha Hashem el Hevel v'melchasai. Hashem turned to Hevel and to his offering. Okay. This is what happened. So one brought wool and the other brought linen. Okay. So he brings over here, before we continue inside, he brings in the parentheses. Look in Likutei Torah Pashas Emor. Look in Likutei Torah Pashas Emor. The Ramaschal v'Heinef Oisam HaKoyin in the B'divrei Ramaschal v'Heinef HaKoyin Oisam. Now, is he referring to Likutei Torah of the Alter Rebbe, the famous Maimer v'Heinef, or is he referring to Likutei Torah of the Arizal, which can also have a piece on v'Heinef? I'm not sure because I didn't check. So I don't know which Likutei Torah he's referring to. It can be either. But anyways, over there it says in the Zohar these words, that Hevel, when he brought, it says, it emphasized over here, that he offered from the sheep that were not shorn yet. And why did he do that? Because because his thoughts were in a very high place. Heve Ba'asar was in a place, Tichsiv, it says in the verse, Va'atik Yoimin Yosef, the Ancient of Days sits. V'sar Reishe, it says, Lavusha, his garment, Kintela Chiver is like white snow. V'sar Reishe, and the hair of his head, Ka'amer Naki is like clean wool. It's supposed to be Naki. Here it says Ka'amer Kani. I guess he's supposed to change the note. It's a printing mistake. Like clean wool. So that was the reason why he brought wool. He wanted to evoke the hair of the Ancient of Days. They were great. They were the sons of Adam. They just came out of Gan Eden. They had this incredible knowledge of the supernal realms of the divine. So Hevel was intending to evoke that at that level, which is very, very high. It represents the supernal whiteness of the white wool. That's what he brought. Anyways, over here it says, V'nitav minchas Kayin, v'nisratz minchas Hevel. You can turn over the page. Shenemar, as it says, Vayisha Hashem al Hevel v'melchasai. Hashem turns to Hevel and his mincha. So now he continues inside in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Oimer. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says on the second page. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God says, Al Yisarev minchas Kayin v'Hevel la'olam. We cannot blend anymore forever. I will never let this happen. That the gift, the sacrifice, the offering of Kayin, which is linen, and the offering of Hevel, which is wool, may never ever be mixed again together. Li'olam. Shema chas v'sholem yisarvu be'ereg. Maybe, God forbid, they will mix in a woven garment. Be'ereg beged, in a woven garment. Shenemar, as it says, like Silbash, Shatzes, tzemer upishtim. You cannot wear tzemer upishtim because by doing that, you're kind of mixing the energies of Cain and Abel. Cool. That's the reason of this prohibition, because these two energies don't work together. As you see, they got into a fight and they killed each other, or one killed the other. V'huva, and this is brought b'yud ches. I couldn't figure out today who Yud Ches is. Yud Ches, I still don't know. Erech Adam. It's a sefer seems to be more of a sefer that's of Kabbalistic nature. And again, the acronym of the book is Yudches, and it's set up in a way that it has a glossary or some kind of an index, similar to the book of Pardes. The book of Pardes, I mentioned to you, has in it an index of names of people, objects, and entities, and it gives its Kabbalistic meaning to each. So in this Sefer Yudches, it's bothering me to no end that I can't figure out what the Yudches is. In the Erech of Adam, in his index where he speaks about Adam, Sif Yud Gimel, in his chapter 13 over there, when he talks about the concept of Adam, V'sham Sif Ayin Zayin, and over there in chapter or paragraph 77, looks like it's a big chapter, the chapter on Adam, if he's got from 13 all the way to 77, Kasev V'zel Shainai, and he writes over there as much. Tam Kalayim, the reason for Kalayim, what's the reason that the mitzvah of Kalayim, Shelo Yisarvu Kayin veHevel Yachad. We can't mix Cain and Hevel. You see this is based on what it says over here, from the Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, from the Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer. That Cain and Hevel cannot be mixed together. The Dom is Sitra the Kedusha. Now here he adds already more meaning to this. Not only are there two unmixable energies, but one of them is holy and one of them is the other side. Obviously, Hevel is the holy one. That's why initially his carbon was accepted by God. He represents the realms of holiness. And Cain represents the unholy. Similar to the two brothers later, Yaakov and Esav, where Esav represents the unholy and Yaakov is the inheritor of holiness. So Cain and Hevel is the same idea. Dam Mesitra the Kedusha, one comes from the side of holiness, V'zah Mesitra Achra, and one comes from the other side. And then he continues, Umisha Mechabra, anybody that attaches them, Marbe Koach HaSitra Achra Olav. If you mix them together, you increase, God forbid, the power of the other side is being increased and intensified over holiness and over himself, of the wearer of that garment. Someone who's wearing that garment, he's bringing upon himself the powers of the unholy, the power of Cain, the power of the linen that's coming from the unholy. And that power is kind of now, when it's on its own, linen is not a problem on its own. It's only when you're mixing it with the wool, and it seems like the wool is a power of Kedusha. As we spoke earlier, the wool is from God's hair, and one is allowing the klipa, the sitra achra, the other side, to derive the energy from that place, and that's a really not good thing. And if you're going to ask, so then he continues, and he says like this, and if you're going to ask, and you're going to say, Kalayim b'tzitzis, how can you mix kalayim, how can you mix this mixture in tzitzis? As I mentioned earlier, in the tzitzis it's permitted, in the tzitzis it is permitted to have the wool and the linen. If Cain and Hevel are two forces that don't mix together, the force of wool and the force of linen, they don't mix together, how can you mix it together in the tzitzis? Ubemigdash, and also in the temple. Lama hayamuter, why was it permitted? So that's the question. So he explains. Again, this is all the Sefer Yudches. Again, which as I mentioned earlier, I don't know who he is. Ki hakedusha kol kach gedola sham, because holiness. So now he explains, because in the Beis Hamikdash, in the temple, and in tzitzis, there is such an intensification of holiness. So in this particular setting, since we're moving inward into a place where holiness is very intense, so this mixture will not be damaging, because the Sitra Achra cannot use the linen to kind of hack. The Sitra Achra, the other side, can't use the linen as a means to hack holiness and to derive that energy and take it to the wrong thing. Ayin Sham, that's what he says over there. Really, the origins of this idea is from Zohar. In the third part of the Zohar, page 86, on the second side, which over there, I guess this concept, which concept? The concept that it's mixing Cain and Hevel together, or the concept that in Tzitzis and in the Beis HaMikdash it doesn't harm? I'm not sure because I didn't look up the Zohar. But one of these two concepts is derived from the Zohar. And again, we find the origins of it in Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer here as well, which is again the predecessor for the Zohar, because Rebbe Eliezer was the Rebbe of Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva was the Rebbe of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar. So this is like the grandfather of the Zohar. So, but this is more midrashic, not Kabbalistic, Rebbe Eliezer. Anyway, this is the idea. So we have an insight into the mitzvah of shatnez. Don't mix Cain and Abel together. And we see that Cain brought the offering of linen. Abel brought the offering of wool, because he brought sheep. Sheep is wool. And God says, keep the two separated. So now the Tzemach Tzedek already adds commentary. And what does the Tzemach Tzedek say? Tzarech loymar. We have to say, al derech, this concept that you can have something that is considered negative and unholy when it is in a certain setting, and the very same thing is permitted in another setting, and it's not considered unholy. Where do we find something like that? Food, regular food. Kosher food. Kosher food, even though it's kosher, we know we have to be very careful when we eat. When we eat, we have to say the blessing, number one. Number two, it is always recommended that when we eat, we don't just eat mindlessly, but we should eat always with the right intentions. Why? Because the food is a mixture of good and bad. Everything in the world is mixed of good and bad. And the attitude that we have when we're eating will determine the nature of that energy that we're deriving from the food. The food enters our body, into our bloodstream, becomes part of our body. How will it how will it be assimilated and integrated into our being? Will it be assimilated as a force of holiness, or will it be assimilated as a force of klipa, of unholy? And that depends what we intensify when we eat the food. If we're thinking about the energy and our intentions are to serve our Creator, so then we dismiss the klipa that's in the food, the shell. It's just like it's the same like you take an egg. You can eat an egg and crunch and eat the peel with the egg, and then the peels are going, and they're not good. The body doesn't do well with the egg peels or eggshells. The body doesn't do well with peels of certain nuts if you're just going to eat them hard. They're klipa, they're shell. They're not good for the body. You don't digest it. Or you take a moment and crack the pistachio, throw away the nut, and take out the fruit and eat what is edible and what is nutritious instead of eating the peel. So when you're eating spiritually, it's the same thing. When you disregard just the physical pleasure and delight that you get from the food, and it doesn't mean you disregard it, you don't feel it. It's not your primary element in the eating. Primary element is not the pleasure of the food. The primary idea is you want to eat what's nutritious and what's healthy so that you can get the energy. And that's what you're thinking, so that you can serve God, not just for energy, but the energy is for serving Hashem. You extract the pneumius of the food, the inner and the klipa, the unholy in the food, dissipates and disappears. And now you've absorbed holy energy in your body, and that food itself, as we learned it many times in many Maimorim, is going to enhance your spirituality. It's going to stimulate, it's going to enhance your spiritual, it's going to increase your desire to learn more Torah, do more mitzvahs. It's going to push you towards good things. If, God forbid, one eats and forgets to make the blessing, or is just being gluttonous in the food that they're eating, then they're highlighting the klipa, and the holy potential that's in the food kind of gets locked and actually descends into a place where it's trapped and it can't, even though there's holiness there, but it's kind of untapped. And not only is it untapped, it's now even in a greater prison than it was before. You lowered the food and you lowered its godly potential. And actually the person is now living off unholy energy from the food. It's now entered their bloodstream as dark energy, not as positive energy, which will probably create within their mind inclinations towards not such good things. Negative, depression, sadness, this, that, doubts, questions, all this stuff that we which are coming, anger, it's what can be from the food that we ate which is not in a good intention. And this is the idea of selection that we have to do. It's idea that borer, whenever we touch food, we have to immediately stop for a moment, take a moment, and do a selection. I want the good and I want to reject it. We have to do that all week long, but not on Shabbos. On Shabbos, we can let our guard down and allow the food in without the filter. Isn't that amazing? Shabbos, you can allow the food in without the filter. Now, why is it that Shabbos, we can allow food into our system without filtering it? Look who's here. Over here. How are you? Baruch Hashem, I needed some male energy. You have another copy? Move it there. Oh no, you put it there. She put it there. It's there. No, it's there. It's there. I didn't realize we had it there. On Shabbos, over there. Oh, take the water, yeah. I'm saying the copies are there. I'm putting, but take the water. Okay. Where's your tea? Okay. On Shabbos, you can let your guard down. Why? Now, why are you allowed to eat food on Shabbos without all that mindfulness? It's because the food itself dropped its shell. The shells are not in the food on Shabbos. The food is shellless. It's completely. Why? Because all of the physical creation rises on Shabbos. The food that was once part of Klipas Noga, which is a mixture of good and bad, the bad in Klipas Noga falls away on Shabbos. And the good of Noga is elevated into holiness. With that comes all the foods, all the things that derive their energy from this Klipa. So now they're in a place there. So what do you see from here? That the same object, depending on can be in two different settings. In the weekday setting, the Sitra Achra has power there. The other side has power over it. And on Shabbos, it ceases to have power. So similar to that, he is deriving and saying, the same will also apply to the mixture of wool and linen, that the linen is related to the other side, to the unholy side. And if you mix it with wool, which is representing holiness, the powers of the unholy will derive energy from holiness, and you're creating a big cosmic mess. And intensifying from the outside, different than food. Food is internalizing, but from an outside power, you're intensifying the forces of unholiness on a person's body. That is when you're wearing this outside the temple. But in the Beis Hamikdash, in the temple, it was permitted. Again, it doesn't mean that you're allowed to bring your shatnez suit into the temple. It doesn't mean that if you had a Shatzes dress that you took to check and they told you what Shatzes, say, well, I'm going to wear it when I go to the temple. No, it's only the priests in the garments that they wear while they're officiating. It's permissible to have wool and linen mixed together. Why? Because in the setting of the temple, that place is an elevated area. So therefore, everything that's there is an elevated state. So the Sitra Achra, the other side, has now no power over the linen when it is in the Beis HaMikdash. So the nature of the linen in the Beis HaMikdash is of a different nature than the linen when it's outside of the Beis HaMikdash. Or, on another exception, when you have a four-cornered garment, and you make it and you put the tzitzis on it, the fringes, the talis, then this garment is elevated to a higher level. There's extra holiness there, and at that state, the klipa has no power over it. So therefore, the wool and the linen could be mixed together. That's what the Tzemach Tzedek is explaining. V'tzarech loymar, we have to say, al derech sha'maychol b'Shabbos, it's similar to the food on Shabbos. Ein boi taru v'isra, doesn't have a mixture of bad. Ki klipas noiga b'Shabbos, because the klipas noga on Shabbos, what happens to the klipa on Shabbos? Mispared hatov sheba mahara, the good, it's on the second page. The good separates in the first paragraph on the second page. The good from the bad separate. V'nichlal hatoiv b'kedusha, and the good gets included and absorbed in holiness. Nimtza comes out, zeh hamachal atzmoi, this very same food item. Yesh boy hefresh bein choylo bein Shabbos, has a difference in which time zone it is. In the weekday, it has this problem, this challenge, this difficulty. This mixture. And on Shabbos, the food is completely holy. Kain, and the same is also kiv on shahat semeru pishtem and betzitzis, when the wool and the linen have become part of a garment of tzitzis, ein behem taruvis mesitra achra. It doesn't have a mixture of sitra achra of other side, but it's still a mixture of two entities. But it's not holy and unholy, it's a mixture of two forces of holiness, kindness and severity. And kindness and severity could be unified as long as it's in the realm of the holy. As kindness and severity begin to make their way further outward into the outer state of existence, into the external levels of beingness, over there, kindness, the energies of kindness, take a longer time until they exit into the unholy, because kindness is more godly revelation. So therefore, kindness, the energy of kindness, stays holy much longer. At the very, very, very core end, kindness also leaks into the unholy. It's possible to have unholy love, and it's possible to have unholy, but it's further out and in a much lesser degree. In the side of severity, in the side of gevura, the klipa begins to mix. It begins to translate and to evolve into the forces of unholiness at a much earlier stage. And therefore, when you're mixing, so if this would be something like this. When you're in the outer realm of existence and you take wool and linen together, the definition of wool and linen in the outer realm of existence is kedusha and klipa, holy and unholy. Take that very same wool and linen and bring it inward to a more inner place, to an inner dimension, like happens when you're doing a mitzvah. You're connecting it to a far inner, deeper energy in an inner realm. So in that inner realm, that very same wool and linen is two forces of holiness. The force of chesed, the wool is the force of chesed, and the linen is the force of gevura. That means like this, it's the same energy all along. It's kindness and severity. But in a deeper realm of existence, the severity is holy. kindness is holy and severity is holy. As it materializes outward into the material physical world, holiness maintains holiness even as it reaches the physical wool. And the the severity channel, which translates into linen is related to Gevura, by the time it gets out into its physical form, it's already clean. And if you're going to mix them there, you're mixing holy and unholy, and you're giving the unholy access to holiness, and thereby causing a big mess. That's the idea. In the inner world, it's a chesed and gevura of holiness. So it is explained by us on the pasuk Heina Adam Ha'yika'achad Mimeno. It's a maimer in Torah Or, where the Alter Rebbe talks about when Hashem is speaking about when Adam Arishon ate from the tree of knowledge. God seems to be very bothered by the repercussions that can happen from man having gotten to know evil. So God says, now there's a problem, because once man has gotten to know evil in an intimate way, if he's gonna eat from the tree of life, then he's gonna bring real danger to the world. So we got to kick him out of the Garden of Eden. That's what Hashem says. But interesting, when Hashem introduces that idea that man has gotten to know evil, he says man has become like one of us. Like he says to the angels, man has now gotten information that we have. He has become godlike in that what? That he knows good and he knows evil. And that's why it's dangerous. So you ask a question. If God knows good and evil and it's not dangerous, and if there are angels, God is speaking to the higher, who know good and evil and it's not dangerous, how come when the human being will know good and evil, it is dangerous? If the human is now similar to Hashem, so in that mimer, the Alter Rebbe comes to explain that. And in that mimer he explains that the knowing of good and evil is not in essence bad. It's only when a being like a human knows good and evil, then it's bad. When a higher divine being knows good and evil, it's not bad. And he explains with that, I'm not going to get into it, that the way they know things up there is in a way of knowledge that keeps the knower and the knowledge detached from each other. When you know it, it's not you. You can know it in a way of makif, in an outer way. So you can know of evil, but it doesn't. It's not becoming you. But by a human, when humans know, since humans internalize, so when they're knowing, they become that which they know. What's coming to my mind is similar to the idea that generally there is a prohibition in the Torah that we are not allowed to read books on various, on different cults and on different ways of, because your person will say, I'm curious, I want to read about different religions or different belief systems and so on and so forth. A Jew is supposed to study Torah or not? And so in addition to wasting of time, the Torah is afraid that, you might read all kinds of different things and you might become seduced by it, by whatever information. So you're not allowed to read books on idolatry, to read and understand how they worship, because it might make sense to you, or you might it's a prohibition. But it says that the Beis Din had an obligation to read those books, because they needed to know how they worship, so that just in case someone worships idols, they have to know if he worshipped it the way it is meant to be worshipped. So they have to really study all these books. But hold it, when they're studying it, they're kind of being influenced by it. So it seems like the Beis Din, for who they were able to gain that knowledge in a manner where it remained completely detached from them. It's a different type of where you can know something without knowing it and digesting it. And that's what he explains in that mimer. So what do you see over there? You can have the same thing, the knowledge of good and evil. In one level it's kosher, and in another level it's not kosher, in another state of being. So this is the idea that we're saying over here. The mixture of good and linen in an inner world, in an inner dimension, is not bad at all. It can even be a mitzvah. And the very same mixture on a more outer level of existence can be toxic and very dangerous. The good inclination and the evil inclination that was by a human being before the sin and after the sin. Before the sin, we also had an evil inclination. But the evil inclination before the sin was not evil. It was called Yetzer Hara, but it wasn't evil. It was actually a very good force. But then, when after the sin, when the human being coarsened, that very force, which was good, it was a force of intensity, became, as translated in the course, as the human being thickened and became dense in his consciousness, the Yetzer Hara, which was once Yetzer Tov, remained good, and Yetzer Hara became a negative force. You can't compare them one to the other. If you would take a before and after picture of the Yetzer Hara, before the sin and after the sin, before the coarsening and after the coarsening, you wouldn't recognize it. It's a complete different beast, a complete different being. When Mashiach will come, we're not going to get rid of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is going to be rehabilitated and reinstated to what he was before, and which is a very powerful force to utilize for holiness. Not in any way a force of negative. Kitzer. So now he does a little kitzer. A kitzer is a summary. Tzemer, pishtim, wool and linen, chibur ve'iruv. This is an attachment and a mixing together of Kayin ve'hevel, of Cain and Hevel. By Yedeiz, and through this magbir koyach hasitra achra, through this, if chas v'sholom you bring it together, one intensifies the power of the other side. So how come kalayim on tzitzis, shatnez and tzitzis, a mixture by tzitzis is permitted? Kisham ein koach l'sitra achra, because in the level of the mitzvah, since as I mentioned earlier, it's elevated to a much higher place. Over there is no power for the sitra achra. What does that mean? Sham ein zet taruvis kedusha v'sitra achra. What it means is over there, these two very entities is not a mixture of holy and unholy, and the other side, kiyem taruvis, it's a mixing, the hiskalalus, and an integration of chesed igvura, the kedusha. They're both holy. It's a mixture of kindness and severity of holiness, which could mix, because in holy, the two sides mix together, kindness. We have this blend, and actually it's a healthy, good thing. Okay. Now, that's his first paragraph. Then he brings B'Medrash Rabbah, Parshas Hookahs. Then he brings from Midrash. Parshas Hookahs, Perik Yutes. In the Medrash, Parshas Hookahs, Perik Yutes, Daf Reish Ayin Daled. Page 274, Amid Aleph. Rabbi Yeshua dech Sichnin b'Shem Rabbi Levi Amar, Rabbi Yeshua of Sichnin, in the name of Rabbi Levi, says, Arba Devarim Yetzer Hara Meishav Aleim. There are four things that the Yetzer Hara, that the evil inclination, questions or questions. The Yetzer Hara doesn't question. Cast doubts and likes to make fun of and be cynical about. Four things. 4 mitzvahs that he thinks the Yetzer Hara comes to a person and says that these things are ridiculous. They don't make any sense. And these are 4 mitzvahs, t'chsiv behem chukah. By all 4 of them, it says that this is a command, a decree. It's a decree. Meaning you don't have to understand how it works, this is the way it is. What are those 4 mitzvahs? Eishes ach, a sister-in-law. That's the first one. The prohibition relating to a sister-in-law. And what kind of sister-in-law? A person's brother's wife. Okay? One's brother's wife. In terms of the brother-in-law marrying his sister-in-law. So one of the people that one may not marry is the wife of your brother, even if she's been divorced. Okay? A woman is married, okay? Her husband divorced her, and now her husband's brother wants to marry her. It's a prohibition. It's one of the aroyos, one of the forbidden relationships. You're now allowed to marry your brother's wife. Now, that is prohibited, but then that very same combination becomes a mitzvah. When does it become a mitzvah? Also this week's in the Torah portion. In the end of the Torah portion, if the brother dies childless, okay, and his wife now is widowed, the brother who this marriage is considered a illegitimate marriage, a prohibited relationship, now he's commanded to marry her. He has a mitzvah to marry her. And so that the child that they're going to have could be named after and considered a continuation, a legacy for the deceased brother who died childless. That's a mitzvah, yibum. If he doesn't want to, then we have the whole process that they do a chalitza, she removes the shoe and she spits on the floor and the whole story, and that's how we can release this connection. So the Yetzer Hara thinks it's ridiculous, because how can how can this be considered a toxic relationship, and now it becomes, and then something change, one small little change, and now it's a holy relationship. It's a mitzvah, which means it's a very godly thing. Is it bad or is it good? Make up your mind. How can it be both? So Eishes Ach, that's one of the things that the Yetzer Hara laughs at. Another one is Kalayim. Is Shatzes bad or good? Toxic mix or commandment, mitzvah. In Tzitzis, it's a good thing. In the Beis HaMikdash. Another one is Sarah Mishtaleach, the goat that is used on Yom Kippur, the scapegoat, which is cast down the cliff. We know that this is the source of atonement. When they would send this scapegoat out, it brought atonement and it cleaned the sins of all the Jewish people. The strange thing is that anybody who touches that goat on the way out, or anybody involved in the process, becomes contaminated. Which contamination means impurity related to sinfulness. So how can that very goat that brings atonement and distances us from sin bring the impurities of sin upon anybody that's involved with it? Right? It doesn't make any sense. Here you have that same thing that releases and frees one from sin, that contaminates. And the other one that doesn't make any sense and is a decree is the red heifer. Because the red heifer, the paraduma, the ashes, remove the stain of impurity, of contamination related to death. And yet, anybody that touches it becomes contaminated. This very thing. So, again, you got the paradox. Klayim, and that's what the Medrash explains. Klayim, lo silbash v'sadin betzitzis mutter. And then the Medrash says, sadin betzitzis, and tzitzis, it's permitted. Uksiv by, and it says by it, Hookah. And that's why it really says Hookah, by tzitzis. Where does it say Hookah? Not by Shatzes. Not in this week's parsha, not in Seitzei, but in Parshas Kedoshim, in Leviticus and Vayikra. So in Parshas Kedoshim, Over there it says, also you can't wear, here. Here's the pasuk. Es chukoisai tishmaru, my decrees you should observe. Behem techaloi sarbia kalayim, your animals you should not mix breed. Sadcha loy tizra kalayim, your fields you should not mix, plant a mixture. Ubeged kalayim shatnes layala elecha, and a mixed garment, shatnes, mixed wool and linen, may not be placed upon your body. Layala elecha should not go upon you. So it says clearly in that verse, this is a decree. Because again, here you're going to have something that we don't understand. And by all of them, by all these four mitzvahs, by the Red Heifer, it says, Zos Hookahs HaTorah. And by Kedoshim, Oizes Hookahs HaTorah, and it quotes, by each of these four, it says Hookah, decree. Parshas Ki Seitzei Daf Reish Tzadik Zayin Amud Aleph. But then he brings another midrash. And this is one midrash that I just now quoted that says that these are mitzvahs that that this is a paradox. In Parshas Ki Seitzei, the midrash in our parsha, Daf Reish Tzadik Zayin Amud Aleph, the Ramaschal Maru Kiliv Yaschein, talks about mitzvahs, and it says mitzvahs are liv yaschein. They are a accompaniment of grace. Mitzvahs are accompaniment of grace. Amar Reb Pinchas. So Reb Pinchas says, in what sense do we say mitzvahs are accompany the person with grace? Amar Reb Pinchas Bar Chama. So Pinchas Bar Chama says, the mitzvahs accompany a person because wherever you go, you bump into a mitzvah. And what does that mean? And wherever you go, you bump into a mitzvah. Wherever you walk, the mitzvah accompanies you. For example, here he doesn't bring the whole thing. It's a beautiful medrash, so I want to read it. He brings part of it, but let's see the whole medrash. The medrash says here, Kisivne bayis chadash, when you build a new house, you're constructing a house, you should make a fence on your roof. You have a mitzvah. You made yourself a new doorway. You should inscribe it on the doorpost. You have a mitzvah of mezuzah. You're buying new clothing. You have a mitzvah. Do not wear wool and linen together. You're going for a haircut. The mitzvahs are accompanying you. Be careful, don't cut off your payas. You're going to farm, you're going to plant. You're going to plow. Oh, the mitzvahs the mitzvahs walking next to you wherever you turn, wherever you go, the mitzvahs accompanying you. Do not plow with an ox and a donkey together. Now, if you're sowing the field, so now you're going to plant or to sow the field. It says, you're now allowed to plant your field mixture. If you're coming to harvest, the mitzvahs are again accompanying you. It says when you're harvesting and you're cutting, so if you forgot the bundle, you have to leave it there. So God says, even if you're not doing anything, you're walking on the road, the mitzvahs are still with you. In what sense? This week in the parsha, if you're walking on the road and you encounter a nest of birds, So you have to shoo away the mother bird and take the children. So you have another mitzvah. So wherever you're walking, wherever you're turning, no matter what you're doing in your life, the mitzvahs are with you, and that's what it means. It is an accompaniment of grace. You have the mitzvahs wherever you turn and walk. You have another mitzvah, another way of having God with you in this naturally godless existence. You're filled with Hashem everywhere and every turn. So that's what he brings from the Medrash. Okay, now why in the world he's bringing this Medrash now? What does he want from this Medrash? What is this adding to the idea of what he discussed earlier? I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. The previous Medrash, I understand. He's bringing that this is there it's talking about the contradiction that there is in tzitzis, in shatnez, that you have the yeah and the no together. You're not allowed to wear shatnez, but in the Mikdash you're not. Right? And that it's called Hookah. So that idea of Hookah he's going to explain in the next piece. But why is he bringing this idea that the mitzvahs are accompanying you? Well, I don't know yet. Okay. Then he says, Bechaya. You should look in Bechaya, which is, again, Rabbeinu Bachya, which is one of the commentaries on Chumash. Kuf Ayin Gimel Amid Beis, Kuf Ayin Tes Amid Aleph, Kuf Pei Dalet Amid Beis, Reish Chav Dalet Amid Aleph. He gives you 4 places in Bechaya to explore, and you'll get insight. Now, being that I have Rabbeinu Bachaya, but I don't have Rabbeinu Bachaya as a sefer independently. I have it inside the Chumash, so I can't look up these pages of Rabbeinu Bachaya, what he's referring to. In any case, but he now continues with Rabbeinu Bachaya. So let's see what he brings from the Rabbeinu Bachaya in Perek Gimel. Ha-Bachaya Parshas Kedoshim Al Pasuk. Now, one thing is for sure, that Tzemach Tzedek is not just here to be cut and paste and give you a bunch of midrashim. He's developing an idea in bringing all this together. And if he throws in a source, it's because in somehow that source is adding clarity into the idea that he's developing. So, but again, as I told you earlier, I didn't get, and maybe Hashem will open up my eyes, Be'ez Hashem, in the next short period that we're learning together, that I should be able to figure out how that is part of the puzzle. This idea that wherever you turn, the mitzvahs are with you. And part of that is regarding if you buy garments, do not wear shatnez. Any case, we'll try to figure that out later. Let's continue what the Bachaya says. Now he's going to explore in this third piece, what does the Medrash mean when we said about tzitzis, we said about this prohibition against mixing of wool and linen, that it's called chukah. The Medrash emphasized very strongly that this is a chukah. A chukah means a decree. So he's going to now, and we say by shatnez, it emphasizes decree. So he's going to dig into the concept of chukah regarding shatnez. So he brings the Bechaya Parshas Kedoshim, the Bechaya in Parshas Kedoshim, which I told you is the other place where it talks about this mitzvah of not mixing wool and linen. Al pasuk es chukoisai tishmoiru. On the pasuk, my statutes, my decrees you should observe. And it says over there, beged kalayim shatnez, and a garment that is kalayim shatnez, that is a mixture of wool and linen, lo yala alecha, should not go upon you. Herech bezeh is describing what means chukah. He's describing what is the meaning of the word chukah. And he explains like this: Pirish chukaisai al derech chukah shamayim. He explains that chukaisai is similar to the idea of the rules of heaven, the decrees of heaven. The pasuk chukah, usually when we understand chukah, what does chukah mean? A king gives a decree. A decree regarding what? A decree regarding certain behaviors. So generally, it's only possible to utilize the word decree when we're decreeing, I would think, regarding human beings who have free choice, So once there is a decree and it says, don't cross the red light, that's a decree. And I have a choice. I can obey or not obey. I can cross or not cross. We're telling me don't cross. The king's decree. That's the rule. Fine. But then you see that the word Hookah is also applied to the laws of nature. Because it says, for example, it says, Imloi berisi yomam v'layla, if not for my covenant of day and night, Hookahs shamayim v'oretz loy samti. The laws, the decrees of heaven and earth, I would not have placed. So, what does that mean? What does it mean, the decrees of heaven and earth? Heaven and earth, in what sense are they decreed upon? So therefore, we have to take the word decree over here and kind of change it. You can say it's enforcing the laws of nature that God set. He's decreeing upon the heavens to act in a certain way. The galaxies, everything is moving in a perfect synchronization, exactly as God set it up. Right? That's the decrees. Nothing changes from its law. Yeah, but you could say so. That's why it's called a decree, but there's more than that. Chukah doesn't only mean a decree. A chukah means, as he explains here, I'll see in a minute, Ube'ioiv simen lamed ches lamed gimel. It says, Hayadaita, do you know chukah shamayim, the chukahs of heaven? Im tasim mishtaroi ba'aretz, v'omer alzeh b'medrash rabbah parshas bereshis, parshas yud. Omer Reb Simon says, Ein loch kol esev ve'esev. So the Medrash says like this, do you know the chukim of Shamayim? Im tasim, if it places mishtaroi, its force, ba'aretz, on the earth, its governorship on the earth. So the Medrash says, so you see from here, that what? That the chukis of heaven have some kind of a mishtar, have some kind of a governorship on earth. So the Medrash says, we see from here, that there isn't a blade of grass that's not down here that doesn't have a ruling force in heaven that rules over it. That's the idea that the chukos shamayim, we'll see soon, again, we'll clarify the word chukah in a minute, but the chukos shamayim have a mishtar, they have, like a mishtara means police, have policing force over haaretz, over the earth. Ein loch kol esev ve'esev she'ein lo mazel barakia. You don't have any blade of grass that doesn't have a mazel. And what's a mazel? A spiritual force that enforces the rules and the character and the nature of every herb, of every figure. Shamaka oisai, that beats it, v'oima loy gadel, and tells it to grow. Do you know the chukah shamayim? So what does that tell you? So what does the word chukah then mean, according to this? According to what I just said, again, this is quoting all Rabbeinu Bachaya. What is then the meaning of chukim? Here, he brings it over here. V'zeu loshen chukim, he says, this is Rabbeinu Bachaya, meloshen Haqiqa v'tzior. The word chukim comes from the word Haqiqa. What does Haqiqa mean? Engraved. Engraved, tzior means a certain image. Chukah shamayim means the images and the engravements that I set in heaven. What does that mean? Ki am tziyare in yonim sichliyim shel maila. There is certain spiritual characters above. Spiritual design, spiritual characters that there is in the supernal realms above. Which are what? Which is these different angels, each one with their character. And each one influences earth with its own style. And for that reason, you have all these different kinds of plants, and every plant has its own function and its own qualities and its own remedies that the plants produces, it has its, right, every plant has remedies and various different things, qualities, and characteristics, that's based on the spiritual Haqiqas. These are the angels above, spiritual forces that are designed with certain design that imprint down here below. Okay, and therefore the Rabbeinu Bachaya says, "V'hamarbia behema min b'she'enoi minoi," and that's why we need to be respectful. And this is something so important in today's day and age. We need to be respectful for the chemistry or the DNA of every being that God created. We should not try to manipulate the genetic code that is in any creature and any being. We're not supposed to mess with it. Why? Because things are supposed to be what they are. Everything needs to be what it is. God created a perfect, harmonious world where everything functions and works, and things down here are synchronized with their spiritual forces up there. Now, if we start to mess with the physical characteristics of things, like we're beginning to change, because we become such big scientists, and we can go into certain things. I'm not talking about when we're trying to heal from illnesses that God wants us. We were given permission to do that. But if we want to get into certain things and to play around with their DNA just to see what the outcome is going to be, that's a problem. Why? Because when we're tinkering with certain functionalities with something down here, we're messing also up with the system on a cosmic scale up there. And then we're causing disharmony and imbalance in the universe, in the spiritual sources of things, and we're causing a tremendous malfunction in the whole system. And it's very dangerous. And this can be done even when you're taking mixed breed of animals. Taking two animals, they're supposed to be male and female of the same species, are supposed to be mating and having their children. If you're taking one species with another species, you're causing some kind of a misalignment in the spiritual forces. From the physical, it's influencing the spiritual. That's what Rabbeinu Bachaya says. When you're planting the plants of one with vehem yoinkim zeh mizeh, the same as with plants and with animals, one is deriving energy from the other. You're mixing the supernal powers that are bestowing the power of birth, or the power of vegetation. As the sages say, there isn't a blade of grass down here that doesn't have a mazel. Okay? And he brings that pasuk that I just mentioned. Do you know the Hookahs? Hookahs means do you know the rules, the DNA of the powerful spiritual forces that God created in heaven? And that's what's influencing on earth, that you think you're so arrogant that you can disregard these systems and just mix whatever you want. And this is what he's discussing over here. You're mixing two things which are two ein ro l'chaberos, and they're not supposed to be mixed. Things need to be what they are. And by the way, that of course applies also to the idea that men need to be men and women need to be women, and they should not try to change their gender and things like that. That is very, very, very detrimental to their own health. They think that it's following a thing. It's very detrimental to their own health and also to the health of all of humanity, and creating big, big, big damage in the entire systems that there are. We can't change based on some psychologist or whatever who decided that there's no problem, and actually this is actually better for people. So this is just something that the Torah is very, very, very strong on. So now, going back inside, this is the idea of chukim. The idea of chukim is there is a Haqiqa up there. There is a forms, spiritual forms that are set up there, anikroim, that are called chukay shamayim. They're called the forms, the delineations of heaven. Well, that's why by kalayim it says es chukaysai dishmoiri tishmoiru, my decrees. Because these are the decrees that God decreed. Decree over here doesn't mean like a decree, like a king's decree, according to Rabbeinu Bachaya. It means the shapes and the forms as I carved out the various different supreme sources up there, which later translate into powers down here. Don't try to rewire my system. I'm the engineer of this whole system. I don't want any help in the engineering over here for messing this whole project up. Well, okay, this is the way Rabbeinu Bachaya is learning the word chukah. He's taking the word chukah out from the regular meaning of chukah, meaning just a decree, God's decree, you have to listen, and applying it to the idea of the shapes and forms that are up there. That's the idea of a chukah, the way things are carved out. Don't interfere with it. The Tzemach Tzedek, however, says, the way I see it, Meloshen HaMedrash Rabbah, if you look in the Medrash, Deliel, Siv Beis, Loi Mashmakein. By the way, I found in the Tzemach Tzedek that he is quite comfortable arguing with Rabbeinu Bachaya, even though Rabbeinu Bachaya preceded him about 600-700 years before him. Yet the Tzemach Tzedek takes on the Rabbeinu Bachaya many times. He's always very, very bases so much on Rabbeinu Bachaya, but at many times he in any case, one time I saw him be very sharp with Rabbeinu Bachaya. He says Rabbeinu Bachaya should never have said this, but it's interesting. In any case, the Vedrash tells the base loy mashmakein. Doesn't apply. Why? If we're saying that the reason why it's called chukah is because you're messing with the underpinnings of creation, sharei b'para aduma, because the same medrash that says chukah is found by 4 places. And one of them is the red heifer. And by the red heifer, you're not mixing 2 different forces. That's not the chukah of red heifer. It can't apply to the para aduma. It can't apply. This concept of chukah having to do with the shape of some spiritual force up there is not applicable. There it says Hookahs Torah. Ein shayach pirush. This pirush will not fit. So we have to say shehi chukah kipshutai. That by paraduma, what does chukah mean? Kipshutai, it means a decree of God, which means something that you don't understand. And therefore, the same is also would be over here by kalayim, by the shatness. Sham pirish loshen Haqiqa. Now, by zois chukas Torah in Chassidus, we learn on, which is talking by the red heifer, we do say that chukah comes from the word Haqiqa, engraved. But engravement over here is not the same meaning, not certain engraved or forms and shapes in the spiritual worlds. But the engravement means it is coming from, it is a mitzvah that is emanating from God's essence, not from Hashem's intellect. There he explains that there is, we know there are, Hashem assumes certain powers, like Chochmah, Sfirot. So Sfirot in some way is considered already like, and of course it's unified with Hashem, but it's still considered as if almost like an addition, like an attachment. So when you say something is a mitzvah is coming from God's logic, so that's like in addition, like a human's logic is in addition to the person. By Hashem, him and his logic are perfectly one, but it's still considered to a certain degree. When you have a mitzvah that Hashem says, and it doesn't have any logic. It's just because who he is. This is emanating from God's very self. In truth, we say all mitzvahs are really like that. All mitzvahs emanated on a level that's beyond logic, and they only descend into the world of logic. But at their core, it's beyond logic. But there are certain mitzvahs that this idea that they are beyond logic, which in a human being would be like, there's certain things I can explain to you why I like them. And then there's certain things, this is just, I'm a vanilla guy, I'm not a chocolate guy. I'm a chocolate, not a vanilla. Why? I can't explain to you. It's just like, it just is. It has to do with my very being. That's the idea. That's called engraved. It's something. It's not you. But you and it are totally one. Like when you engrave something on a thing, the letters and the object in which it is engraved are completely one. So there he said Lashon Haqiqa, and that's why it makes sense. Mitzvahs that are decrees, which are what? Beyond the intellect, means they just are of the essence of God. And we're supposed to also do them not out of reason. We're supposed to do them because with simple obedience. And it's also supposed to touch us in a place that these mitzvahs are engraved in us. Okay. So over there it uses, you see the word Hookahs associated with Haqiqa, engraved. Now, in Rabbeinu Bechaya himself, elsewhere in Rabbeinu Bechaya, in the beginning of Parshas Hookahs, which again, that's the Parsha dealing with Hookahs, Sheyesh Gimel Perushim B'Hookahs. There he says there is 3 meanings in the word Hookahs. Ha'echad, number 1, is the preferable pirush that the Tzemach Tzedek likes over here. It means a decree of God. In other words, even though in Parshas Kedoshim, the Rabbeinu Bechaya is pushing the pirush of Chukah, meaning a shape and a form that there is in the shape, the various different shapes and forms of the spiritual worlds. That's the idea of Chukah. And the Tzemach Tzedek disagrees with him. And the Tzemach Tzedek says that the main idea of Chukah is a decree of God that's beyond reason. In Parshas Hookahs, when he's speaking about Paraduma, Rabbeinu Bechaya himself gives you 3 interpretations on the word Chukah. First of them being what? Chukah means a decree of the king that you can't understand. Lashon Chakuk Gzeiras HaMelech. It's a decree. B'davar she'ein tamoi noida lebriyos. In something that its reason is not known to, because if the reason is known, it's called a law. That's called in Hebrew mishpat. Mishpat, a law that is, everybody understands why the king issued this thing, it makes sense. But when he gives a kind of a decree and without a valid explanation for it, people still have to listen. Uke'inyan, and there he says, shtoik, kach olah b'machshava. We find that God sometimes relates to us in a manner where he doesn't want us to try to figure it out. We find when Rabbi Akiva was complaining about, not Rabbi Akiva's students were complaining, or the angels, the angels were complaining about how Rabbi Akiva was being treated. It says God yelled at them, be quiet, this has arose in my thought. Meaning, this is what I want, and there's no explanations. Okay. Okay, he brings a bunch of sources where this idea is discussed. This is what the sages say. Now, this idea, the first pirush of the Rabbeinu Bechaya and the word choik, choik meaning a decree that we don't have an explanation to, is what the sages say regarding Paraduma. Omar Shlomo, who's the wisest of all men, what does King Solomon say? Echkema, I tried to crack the code of the red heifer, of the Paraduma. It's distant from me. This is one that I couldn't figure out. This is beyond my understanding. So that's the first pirush. So you see, paraduma, it's higher than anybody's knowledge, even King Solomon. Now, Beis, the second pirush, Lashon Haqiqa. Haqiqa means engraved. So that's the Rabbeinu Bachaya says the second meaning of the word chayk is Haqiqa, which means engraved. Yermois ledavar achakuk umitsuyar lamayla. Oh, so this fits with what this is now in the second pirush. He's relating to the same pirush that he said in Parshas Kedoshim, that the word chayk comes from the word something that is like shaped up there in heaven. Ke'inyan al kapayim chukoisayach. V'zen is bar bebir al pasik chukas ha'torah, the para, where we explain this idea. It's similar to the concept of Haqiqa, which we said earlier means an engravement. Hagimel, and then the third one, Chukah meloshin gevul. Chukah also means, Chukah means engraved. Chukah also means from boundaries. Kamoi, Ashesamti choil gevul liyam. God says, I put the sand as a border to the sea. Choik oilam, an eternal law, an eternal decree. Well, what does that mean? That he made a border. Lo yavireno, they're not allowed to cross. Or another pasuk, Chukas yerech v'chaychavim. The chukah of the moon and the stars, la'or laila, to light by night. B'yirmiyo simin lamed aleph. This is in Jeremiah and Yirmiyo simin lamed aleph. What does that mean? Boundaries. Koloimar gevulei hayoim v'halayla. That there should be limitations and boundaries to day and night. Similar to this we find in Parshas Korach, the Medrash says, it's a little hard. I mean, this last pirush is very close to the previous pirush. Previous pirush means engraved. This pirush means boundaries. But it's different, because an engravement is usually, we'll see that all boundaries come from an internal engravement, but two different things. Okay, this pirush we find Parshas Korach. This is where Davar Achar, it says, Omar le'ah Moshe. Moshe said to Korach, when Korach tried to mess with the boundaries that God set. What was the boundaries that God set? Hashem set the boundaries that there is only one Kohen Gadol, one high priest, and then one particular family of priests. And then there are the Levites, the Levium, and then there is the Yisroelim, the rest of the Jewish people. And Korach wanted to mess with that, because Korach wanted to argue that everybody can be a Kohen. God set boundaries in the world. Moshe asked them, can you mix, if you decided to mix up day and night, can you do that? So too Moshe says, Kach hivdil Yisroel, God separated the Jewish people from the Gentiles. The Kach hivdil Aaron, and God separated the Kohanim, Aaron's family, from the rest of the Jewish people, with an absolute separation that cannot be breached. It can't be broken. V'havdalah ben gvul hayoim v'halayla, just like there is separation between day and night. So similar to this is also said about what? The mixture. Just like Korach wanted to create a mixture amongst the Jewish people, mix it all together. Everybody's the same. This is the idea, this is the corrupt idea of equality that is so messing up today's young people and societies. Equality means when everybody, the real meaning of equality is everybody is given equal free choice from God to fulfill the role that they were given to play based on the divine purpose and design that God designed them to play in this world. The notion of equality, that everything is the same, is destroying creation. Things are not the same. Everything is unique and different. If it's all the same, then why do we need multiple? It's because you are unique and you are the only one who has that talent and that's why you need to contribute what you should and could contribute. And every single creature has to be who they are. The point is you have to be yourself. You can't try to be someone other than yourself. If you try to be someone else, you've destroyed yourself and you destroyed all of creation. Can't do that. And that goes to all boundaries. And that's why, be'irvav the kalayim, if you're trying to mix the different species together, the yoiser yesh l'damoisai, even more it can be compared lahavdalah the Yisroel, to the separation that God separated the Jewish people from the Gentile. A Gentile has a purpose and a mission as a Gentile and needs to serve Hashem as a Gentile, fulfilling their role in this world, and the Jew has a different role. And this is what the sages have also said, b'yalkud, and that's why the sages say, shahalba albas oivet kachavim umazalis, that a Jew who has relationships with a Gentile woman, oiver mishim sizra karmacha kilayim, is transgressing, in addition to the transgressing of the prohibition of the Gentile woman, also on this that it says, do not plant your vineyard a mixture. The vineyard, the Jewish nation is called God's vineyard. If he's now bringing in this Gentile woman and taking a vine seed, he's having relations with her, so he's planting a seed of the vine into what is not supposed to be part of the vineyard. That's the mixture. You can't mix. Everything has its place. The imkain lefiza asashapi Hookahs the gaba kalayim. That, according to this, we can understand the meaning of the word Hookahs, which applies to kalayim, to the mixture of wool and linen and all these mixtures. Why? Because over here we are breaking the boundaries that God had set. These are the boundaries that God has set in His world. Sitra the kedusha, not to mix. Oh, what did we say now? Just like there are certain divisions that Hashem made, and we said Jew and non-Jew. So going back to what we said about Shatzes, to the beginning, all the way to the beginning of tonight's class, we spoke that the wool represents holy, and that's why Hevel brought wool, and Cain, which is the source of the unholy, brought linen. And just like Jew and non-Jew are not allowed to intermarry one with each other, and that's not a good mixture. In other words, what he's trying to say, what he's emphasizing is like this. This is what he's saying. It's not just an unhealthy shidduch from two species, like mixing day and night. Day isn't holier than night, night isn't holier than day. Milk and meat, there isn't a mixture over here of holy and unholy. It's two different things, but not holy and unholy. That's chukim. But he says, then there are certain things which are considered already like a violation of the boundaries of holiness. Jew and Gentiles is a certain mixture that it's not just two different species, it's deeper than that. It's the entire realm. One realm can't mix with the other realm, the holy and the unholy in this sense. The not yet holy, let's say. Then, so kalayim, the wool and linen, is not just a mixture of species, but also is related to the mixture of holy and unholy. As he says, Shaloi la'ariv sitra the kedusha, b'chinas tzemer, which is the wool, shesharshoy, which its spiritual source, its origins, its divine source, b'chinas sa'ar reishe ka'amer naki, where it says that the hair of his head is like clean wool. So this is a very, very, very sublime level of holiness. Im sitra achra, to mix it with the other side, shu pishtan, which is the flax, the Cain, which is related to the world of Cain, of Cain. Okay. But now the Tzemach Tzedek says, okay, so we have now a pirush in Chukim, that Chukim means boundaries, and when it says Hookah by Shatzes, it says Hookah. We can understand because you're mixing the boundaries. But now the Tzemach Tzedek wants to tie it in with the other two pirushim in the word Hookah. Hookah also means engraved, and Hookah also means a decree beyond reason. So how are we now going to connect the two other two into the mix? How do we bring them into the mix? Because we know whenever we have different pirushim on one word or on one concept, it means that they're related. They're not just randomly three different pirushim, they all fit with each other. Each one complements the other. So we have to say they're all together. So in Ma'oira Or, which is a Kabbalistic sefer, in Ois Gimel Sifhei, he says, when he talks about the concept of gvul means boundaries. He says, what's the source of boundaries? The source of boundaries is the source of dinim. Din, judgment. Judgment sets borders and boundaries. Chesed flows. It defies borders. It's the energy of kindness. It kind of diffuses everywhere. The setting of borders, this comes from discipline. So gvul comes mitzad adinim, comes from the side of judgment. Hanoisnim kav hamida, that sets a midah, a measurement for everything. Ugvul l'chol davar, it sets a measure. Now we're coming back to this concept continuously in the last few classes. What's the origins of what sets borders and boundaries in the infinite energy of God? The dark lamp. Right, we keep on coming back to the dark lamp, to the Beitzina de Kardenusa. The dark lamp is the power of tzimtzum that there is in the infinite light of chesed, of keser. In keser, there is the power, gevura da'atik. It's the power of restraint that there is in the Ancient of Days. Where in the Ancient of Days, there is no left. It's all Ba'or Pnei Melech Hayim, the inner light, the continents of the King of Life. There is no judgment, and yet within there is the idea of Gevura Da'atik, the power of Gevura, the power of restraining in that place. Boitzina de Kardenusa, the dark lamp, which is the root of what's called Kav Umida, the measuring stick, the ruler that sets a measure in all of existence. Vishar Shoy, and its root, Migvura is Ta'atik Yoimin. It's called on a lower level, it's called the dark lamp. Higher than that, it's called Gevurais of Atik Yoimin. Shebemoyach Stima, that is in Chachma, in the concealed Chachma, which, as we discussed last week, is called the power of Din. Last week we learned that the power of Chachma is where Din starts 2 weeks ago in the Maimer of Achol Banayach. Lemudei Hashem, we were learning over there that B'chachma tivne bias, that Malchus needs to have dinim, needs to have judgments, or else the Klippas would completely eat her up. And she needs to receive it from Chachma, because the power of discrimination, of where to give and where not to give, originates there, sets borders. Also in the middle of Rebbe's Maimer that we learned a few weeks ago, he's talking about Kate Sam L'choshech, that there is an expiration date for darkness, It has to end because Hashem set limits. So this is all related to boundaries. This is the root of Gevura. So now it will make sense. Why? Ki Hookahs hanal, the boundaries that there are in everything, between day and night, the boundaries that there are in each species that there is, the boundaries there is between the holy and the unholy, in holiness itself, the boundaries that there are between the Jewish people and the Kohanim, and so on and so forth, all these boundaries that Hashem sets, ki Hookahs hanal sharsham, from the internal engravement that Hashem engraved in Atik Yomin, Hashem set a certain image. He set a certain self-restraint, if you can call it, which has, and that's the idea of, so the boundaries that there are later in creation are related to this internal engravement, which is this measure moyach stima shesham gamkein. Now that level is also a level that brings us to the third pirush. That level is also the level of that utterly transcends intelligence, because where is this baitzina de kadrinus? Where is this dark lamp? The dark lamp is not in the conscious mind. The dark lamp is in the pre-conscious intellect, in the moyach stimoy, in the intellect as it's still in potential. What does that mean? When you're studying any subject and you have a flash of insight, and there is an epiphany, an idea, a new concept. Every idea and every concept comes already pre-imprinted in it the boundaries. Because without boundaries, let's say you have an idea and you don't have a preset limitation in that idea, you want to run with it, and you want to resolve every problem in the universe with this one concept. It's gonna become so untrue and unreal. It's an intrinsic border to to this innovation that you innovated, that it stays within certain parameters. And it's not applicable everywhere and in everything and to every. Sometimes there are people who are lacking that a little bit, and they want to apply whatever it is to everything and everywhere in all situations, and it doesn't work. So there has to be a pre. Now, but where does that come from? The conscious mind, the power of revelation of ideas, doesn't set that border. It's the pre-intellect that spits out a concept and already imposes on it a how would I call it? A border, a boundary. In other words, it's not a rational thing. In other words, you can't. It's from the pre-rational mind that has. It's not a sophisticated process in our thinking that we set the border to the energy. It's related to the pre-intellect, and ultimately, when you draw it all back to God, from where it's because so He decides, not because there is reasons why this has to be shaped that way and this has to be shaped that way. So ultimately what that really means, the reason you play this particular role within the creation doesn't have to have a rational reason and an explanation. In other words, it's just this is the way it is. To start hypothesizing why it is that I was giving this role, and why it is that is ridiculous, because it's not based on any rational necessary it's just so it was decreed that this is who you are, and this is who you are, and so on and so forth. And this is the way it is. These are the borders and these are the boundaries. From that place that's completely beyond reason, that sets the border. So now is where you have all three Pirushim coming together. You have the decree, you have the shape, you have the engravement, and you have the borders and the boundaries. Because all three are intrinsically tied up together. V'hainu ki chukim hanal. That's why, for instance, even in Yiddishkeit we say that the particular mission that you have and that particular challenge, and usually how do you know what is your mission? What you find in your life to be the hardest. What you find for whatever, when you can't even explain why you have so much challenge in one particular aspect of your life, you know that's your tikkun, your work that you need to work out. And if you want to know why it is, it says that this is called goyral leinu. It's a goral. Alter Rebbe says that your particular mitzvah, that's you shine more than anything else, it's your business in this world more than anything else, it's called goral. Goral means a lottery, and just like a lottery doesn't have an explanation why it fell out that this person won or this person, it has nothing to do with any, it's so is the lot. So the Alter Rebbe says when we say goraleinu, our lot means our particular function that we play within the universe is not, you can't figure that out with a rational reason why it has to be that way. And therefore, we just accept ourselves and our role and be very happy about it, because nothing we can think of and it... On this level it says, it's far from revealed explanations. It's not like Chachma already in the world of Atzilus, which is already revealed Chachma, which means when the Chachma is already becoming understood. Over there it opens up. That level of Chachma you can have an opening in. L'lamed Beis Shvilin, it opens up into 32 pathways of understanding. This is a level of Chachma that remains stuma, it remains closed. It's not revealed why it is this way. Now, this last piece that he adds over here, again, I don't know what he's bringing from this. This is the supernal father and mother. Maybe what it means, supernal father and mother, is not Abba ve'ima. It's not Chachma and Bina of Atzilus. It's the Chachma and Bina that are higher while they're still in Keser. Maybe, again, I'm scared to say things on my own, but maybe that's what he's trying to bring from Ma'orei Or, that the idea of Choykeke is not Chachma and Bina as they are already manifest. It's the pre-Chachma and Bina as they are. That's why they're called Eloin when they're higher. HaChoykekin l'zah. They're the ones that put the shape of Shamayim. Zah is called Shamayim. They lay the boundaries of things. They make it into a keli. Chok mitzad ha-yesoid. Chukah nikra ha-malchus ha-nechkekes. Yesoid is called chok, the male power of choik, and malchus is called chukah. She becomes engraved al yedei ha-yesoid, but all through the power of the pre-chachma and bina, when it's still in keser. As we said before, it's not logical, it's not rational, we don't understand it. Okay, but this is very, very important stuff. The idea of the appreciation that who we are and what we are is not rational and logical, and the same is with all the individual settings and designs and boundaries that there is to all creatures and all beings. One thing we are told that it's not healthy and it's not good and it's not beneficial for anybody to try to manipulate and mess that up, because that's detrimental it creates probably such heartache and such deep unsettledness. That's the idea. It's unsettledness when you're not true of who you are, and you can't change this. Who you're going to be was decided before you existed. By the Creator who designed you. So we're not partners in that. We're partners in making, once we who we are. One thing He can't do is the actual production. That's what we need to produce. He created the machinery to produce. And when a machinery is produced, each part of them, each peg and each wheel has to play its function. We're given free choice to play our role or not to play our role. But we have a role to play. And that role can't be changed. That's the thing. We can't decide our role. Our role has been pre-decided. We can decide how much we will utilize our gifts that we were given to actualize that role. That's it. Doing anything else is wasting a lot of time. Kitzer. Chukaisai loshen chukai shamayim. Chukaisai means that shehem amazolos, which are the mazolos. Chukai shamayim loshen gevulos, which are, and what are the mazol? Why are they called the mazolos? Because they are the underlying gevulos that there are, which are the boundaries. Kamay gevula yoyim v'lo. L'cheinin gevul Yisroel v'gevul kahanim. This is the boundary of Yisroel and the boundary of Kahanim, Lagaba Leviim, and compared to the Leviim. Kamoi boiker Lagaba Erev, like morning to evening. Kach ef shala arvev, so too we can't mix. Beis kochos the tzemer upishten. Now you can't mix wool and linen. Shem b'chinas hevel upchinas kayin. They're hevel and kayin. Upchinas gevulos elu, and these boundaries nimshachem mekav hamida. Where do they derive from? From that measuring, a measure that measured out everything. The nature and the energy and the style of every being was all through that restraining power that there is in the Or Ein Sof, Hanikra Mechokeik, which that's called the Mechokeik power. It is what? Ki chok li Yisrael hu, choykeke Yisrael hu. Okay. Ubir oid habachaya. Now, here's an amazing thing. This is where everything lies, in the next piece. Here's where you see the attempt of Klippa right before Mashiach comes. What's Mashiach? Mashiach is a time of peace and harmony. When finally, for the first time in all of existence, all of creation will be at peace with each other. Everything will function perfectly. There will be completely peace in the world. So Rabbeinu Bachaya says, peace will only be achieved when every being accepts themselves and their role that they need. When we try to create peace in another way, and that is by removing borders and boundaries on every level of existence, by removing borders and boundaries and creating mush for peace sake, you're not making peace, you're making war. And this is the attempt that the Klippa does before Mashiach comes. In the name of progressiveness. Let's make peace by making everybody be one. Taking away the boundaries and the borders. That causes terrible, because when you mush things down here, you're causing deep energies that are not meant to go together, to merge together and rub on each other and create big hurricanes and who knows what. It messes up everything. It's dangerous to the environment. It's dangerous to mankind. It's dangerous to human. It's dangerous to everything. It's an entire disruption. Nations need to be nations. Everybody needs to get along with each other. We need to respect each other. There can't be a sense that my role is bigger than your role or I'm more important than you. Every creature is, but everybody has to be who they are and play their role. The mixing, the marriages that are not meant to be married with each other destroys the world. That's what it is. And these unions, this whole, and that's the danger of this whole philosophy. And that's why Rabbeinu Bachai explains, you know what the sages say. Even the supernal ones need peace. Shanemar, as it says, he makes peace up there. What's the conflict up there? Because there is the energies of kindness, there's the energies of gevurah, of discipline. Each one has its function. And kalayim causes the opposite of peace. You're thinking you're making peace. You want to bring along, you want to create, you want to bring together the cow and the donkey. You're thinking you're making peace. Why shouldn't they all be the same? Doesn't work that way. You're mixing them. They work better when everybody does their function as part of one greater whole. Of course it's peace. Peace is when we're all playing our role. A symphony is created from different sounds. Right? There you go. And therefore he says, that's interesting. The other word for shatnez, which applies, shatnez is only in clothing, but the other word for this mixture, which applies to all mixtures, is kalayim. Is the word kalayim. Kalayim means a mixture. So he says the root of the word kalayim means making something dysfunctional. Kele. Kele means imprisonment. You're imprisoning the forces because you're actually nullifying the power of something. Lashon bittul hakoiches. You're destroying women. You're destroying the powerful power of femininity if you try to make women men. And it's being destroyed. They're just not healthy for them. When men try to be women, it destroys men. It destroys that whole power. And it's Lithuanian is deity. So that's what he says. It's kalayim loshen bittul hakoiches. And the Tzemach Tzedek adds. He says this is what the Rabbeinu Bachai says. And according to the way I see it, he says, Ef shaloimer kalayim loshen kele. Kalayim comes from the word. Oh, and the Rabbeinu Bachai explains, just like when a person is in jail, he can't utilize his powers. He's being restricted. He has powers. He can't actualize it. Ef shaloimer, so the Tzemach Tzedek is adding that kele means also something else. Loshen kele is like when kishemamshech hakadusha besitra achra. When you're mixing these two together and you're taking holiness and you're drawing into the unholy, this is like putting the holy into the prison. Zeu beis hakela. This is imprisoning holiness. Hepech b'chinas yichud im hakala elyoina. Kela is a close word to kala. Kela is with an aleph and kala is with a hey. Kala means unity. So you want to draw down holiness into the Shekhinah, into the Kala, into the right vessel, into the right container. Shebashir Hashirim, that's spoken in Shir Hashirim in the Song of Songs. An example of a union which would have been not a union where the recipient, see, in a marriage, the recipient completes you. Your wife, is in a sense, you're being drawn into a keli, into a vessel. The woman is the vessel, but you're not imprisoned in that vessel. Marriage is not when you're getting married, you're not becoming a prisoner. Quite on the contrary, your spouse is gonna help you tap your powers. She's going to bring you out. She's going to completely develop, open you up. But then there are certain relationships. If someone is getting caught, then sometimes we get messed up. We get caught into a relationship, and we get and if it's not a healthy relationship, you get caught, you get stuck, and literally you're a prisoner in that relationship. So, for example, like that, Yosef is the power of holiness. The wife of Potiphar, who took a liking to him, she was thinking that this is a perfect match of energies. Here you got a good. But had he had relations with her, he would end up in prison. He actually, even by her wanting to, got him into prison, then he got out. But that's a prison, like it says. Al derech, as he says. She says, it says that she wanted him, lishkav etzla, that he should lie down next to her, liyais ima, he should be with her. So the sages say that if he would lie down with her, physically here, then he would be with her. When? In the future world. But being with her in the future world, in the world to come, would not be a bracha for him. This wouldn't be a blessing for him. This would be the biggest curse, because he would be stuck in a prison in the world to come forever and ever. He would be tied. As the sages say, that a sin, the person has, especially talks about sexual sins, a relationship and a forbidden, that klipa remains attached to the person. Thinks it's over. I'm done. I had my relationship, I'm gone. I left. Doesn't work that way. That klipa remains attached like a leech. It leeches onto the person's soul, and it remains eternally attached unless the person unattaches it through tshuva. The repentance of tshuva unleashes, but on its own, it will latch itself on, even though the person has no idea, to his soul or to her soul forever. So you need to do the tshuva to undo that. So you see, there's two types of recipients. There's a recipient that is your home, your container, your vessel. That's kala. And if it's not the right one, if it's not meant to be a match, then instead of kala, it becomes kele. It becomes a prison. Okay? So now we're saying that's the idea of kilayim. You're causing an energy to get imprisoned somewhere instead of it being in the right vessel for it. Is talking about the malchus, the mizbeach, the vineyard, which in Chassidus it explains it all to bring the feminine recipient of godliness. And that's why the kalayim is forbidden to us. This is not a good attachment. This is not a good marriage. It's not a good attachment. Chazal said something else similar to this. Bas Talmud Chacham, even within the Jewish people itself, certain matches don't go. The daughter of a scholar should not marry an ignorant person. The sages say if a scholar takes his daughter and gives her to a ignorant person, ein zevugam or leyafa, their marriage will not be well. Lefi shuhu me'ein kalayim, that's also a unhealthy mix. V'hamafrish beineim, and someone that causes that this shidduch should not go. Someone who says not exactly the right match. Goyrim shalom ba'olam, actually causes peace in the world. Like the Rebbe always says, I give an example. So many times when people would ask the Rebbe regarding a man, someone is in love, he's in love with a Gentile woman, or a Jewish girl is in love with a Gentile man. So the Rebbe would always say, to explain to them that this is harmful. It's harmful for both of them, and that this is very, very not good, and they won't have a happy marriage in the end. They might be happy at the beginning. And you should do whatever you can to break up. The Rebbe sometimes did drastic things to break up such things. And you think, come on, is this a man of peace? This is like the ultimate, you're destroying love. Love is the most beautiful thing. No, it's a love that's going to lead one to hell. I don't mean hell in the afterlife. I mean hellish existence over here. Because it's not meant to go together. You're mixing things that don't belong mixed together. They just don't belong. It doesn't work. So that's what it says. Amafrish b'neihem goyrim shalom ba'olam. Sometimes separating is the way of bringing peace, not bringing together. And someone who's bringing them together, is causing the opposite of peace. Because he's destroying the supernal boundaries. And he causes he's causing the maidservant, which is the klipa, to become the mistress over the Shekhinah, over the forces of holiness. And the forces of klipa become dominated over the forces, and they become trapped. And again, this leads to just really, really bad stuff. Shechibur ze ein zivug klal. It's not a zivug, it's a prison. Okay. Now the rest of the Maayon is going, if so, why is tzitzis? Okay. So when I take a look at the whole world of klipa today, and people bring up this whole question, this and that, I believe that this applies also to the borders that there has to be between nations. Dismantling of borders and saying that there's no border is a death sentence to any nation. It's a death sentence to the entire civilization. Nations need to exist as nations, appreciate each other, help each other out, help each other's economies, build each other's up, figure out how to be of assistance, but the nations need to be their nations. This whole removing of borders, taking everything down and and it's out of what? Empathy, feeling bad. I feel so. Of course, a country needs to. There is a process. People need to come in. America has always been a country that allows people. There is borders, and then there is a system in, and that system in has to be a healthy system that allows for those who need to come and could come and so on and so forth to be assimilated and to move into it. The removal of borders. That's why you find across the board that those that are advocating for klipa ideas are it's advocates and everywhere, and they turn into a monster she'ein kamayah for them. No, it's not true. You see it over here. He's saying that the separation and the boundaries brings peace, and the removing of borders. And again, it's all across the board. Removing the borders between men and women, removing the borders between animals and people, between every kind of border that you try to remove, and then the borders between Jew and non-Jew, and between all this is goes back to the war of Korach. It goes back, and it doesn't lead to peace. It leads to the opposite. It leads to eventually to a lot more heartache, pain, and suffering for all of humanity. And because the world feels Mashiach is coming, which is the ultimate harmony and peace in the world, the klipa that comes before this tries to create peace in the non-holy way, which is making everything the same. That doesn't work. If that's the case. So why is kalayim permissible in tzitzis? And also in the garments of kohanim. B'shas avoda, at the time of work. So the Rabbeinu Bachaya says, he's continuing with Rabbeinu Bachaya. Because all the powers that are different than each other, kulam kalilim b'mitzvah tzitzis. In tzitzis, they're all absorbed. Bein halavan v'hatcheles. Lavan and Tcheles, white and Tcheles. For example, Lavan is white, is Chesed. Tcheles, blue, is the color of Din, of judgment. They say the word Tcheles comes from the word Tichla, to destroy. It's a power of. So blue and Tcheles is the power of Din and Chesed. In the Tzitzis, they're both together. The Tcheles and the Lavan, they're tied together. Even though one is Chesed and one is Gevura. How does that work? So because in Tzitzis you see that the white and the blue, which is Chesed and Gevura, they're together. So that's why Tzitzis can also handle the wool and the linen being together. Why is that? Because ultimately, if you trace everything back to God, all the opposites are all one. In its origins of origins, everything is one. When they emerge outward, each one needs to be in its place. Once they come into kalim and into vessels, each one needs to function in its own thing. Mixing them then is creating havoc and destruction. But in its inner source and core, over there it's all one. Therefore, in Tzitzis, which is a much deeper state, because it's a mitzvah, over there it could be unified, or in the Beis HaMikdash, as he says, Bein halavan v'atcheles, and Darsha, it demands tzemer upishtim. Oh, no, it actually says, there's a pasuk that says this. He's a gavaldig from Eishes Chayil. Think about this. In Eishes Chayil, in the piece that we say Friday night, the woman of valor, we say like this: Darsha, she seeks out tzemer upishtim, wool and linen. Darsha tzemer upishtim. Vatas bechayfetz. Darsha tzemer. Vatas, she makes bechayfetz with her desire, kapel with her hands. So the way the Rabbeinu Bachaya reads this pasuk is referring to the Shechina, and she's God's power of kingship. Darsha, she seeks out anybody that violates this rule of mixing wool and linen, and she punishes them. Darsha, she seeks out, the supernal Shechina, seeks out anybody who mixes wool and linen together, and God forbid, it brings punishment upon them. But Vatas, bechayfetz, for her desire, kapel, she makes it with her own hands. That's tzitzis. She mixes the wool and linen together. What she punishes for, she creates it herself. What does that mean? In the mitzvah, the wool and the linen comes together. But in general, outside of the mitzvah, you get a violation for that. You get a ticket. Work. Ve'im kulam klulim b'mitzvah tzitzis. So then the Rabbeinu Bachai says, if all of them are included in tzitzis, ain't sarach loima b'shas migdash in the temple, b'shas avoda at the time of the service, shakola koichos klulim sham, over there all these individualized outer projected powers that are differentiated when they go out, but in the Beis HaMikdash they're all sucked in back to their source, and over there they're one. Because all the inyanim of the Beis HaMikdash down here, hem dugmas in Yane Beis HaMikdash, are parallel to the Beis HaMikdash shalamayla atkan teichen devarav. This is the general idea that Rabbeinu Bachaya says. Habachaya. But the Tzemach Tzedek is asking, I don't understand it. He says, this is not to be understood. If we're saying that linen is sitra achra, is the other side, it's from the side of the unholy, because that's why it's sitra achra de Kayin, it comes from the side of Cain. Up there, they're together. Up there, good and evil are mixed. Good and evil can't be mixed. How can they be unified up there with holiness? We can say, the last page, Al derech, it's similar, that in the supernal chariot, you have a very powerful creature that represents the highest levels of holiness. Who is that? The lion. The lion is in the chariot, and over there the lion represents a greater holiness than any of the other beasts that are in the chariot, maybe besides the human. The lion is like the highest level. But the interesting thing is that when the lion finds his way into our physical universe, it's considered a non-kosher animal. And we know, and we learn in Chassidus that all non-kosher animals derive from the lowest form of klipa, the 3 impure klipa. Well, hold it, isn't it just a manifestation of that lion? It should be a powerful beast of holiness. Hupnei Arya, and more than that, the ox is a kosher animal. The ox is also in the chariot. And we know that in the chariot, the lion is much holier and closer to God than the ox is in the chariot. This is on the right side and the left side. And the right is always stronger. Each one includes the others, but still, the lion element is the strongest element from all the others in terms of its holiness. But and how can it be that the lion down here is klipa, and the ox down here is not kedusha, but it's klipas noga, and we can elevate it. We can put it in the chalent. You can't put lion's meat in the chalent, even though it's probably not a good idea, but couldn't do that. It's not kosher. The face of the eagle. Same thing with the eagle. The eagle is a non-kosher bird. It's a predatory bird. It's not kosher. And up there, it's very holy. Down here, it's a non-kosher bird. And we know up there, the concept of eagle is very, very holy. As it says, God says, I carried you, al kanfei nisharim, on the wings of eagles. V'nesher, and we know that what does it represent? Shchinta ilah. The eagle represents the supernal level. Shchina, in Shchina itself, there's the lower Shchina and the higher Shchina. Malchus is the lower Shchina, and Bina is the higher Shchina. And the eagle represents Bina. Bina, V'yoina Shchinta tata. The dove is the lower Shchina, and the eagle is the higher Shekhinah. Yet we know that a dove is what? Even though it's a far inferior level of holiness, a dove is a kosher animal. We can offer it as korban, and an eagle is not kosher. The face of the lion is higher than the ox. Ella, because when they come down, they flip. It turns, when it comes down into this world, it gets flipped over the other way. This happens. This is the impact of the shattering of the vessels. Because the lion is very high, because it's such intense godly energy, it's too intense, and the vessel shatters. It doesn't have a vessel to come down. To come down in a kosher animal. In other words, the way the energy comes down is through a shvirat hakelim, through a shattering. And it translates down here into just like we say the same thing about Esav. He's such powerful holiness up there in his source. As he translates down here, he becomes such a bulvan, he becomes such a beast, a monster. Or another example, Torah mitzvahs, because they're so high, they come down only in a physical garment. But if you try to access these energies through a spiritual means, you can't access them. If someone wants to strip away the physical observance from mitzvahs and just tune into their energies and try to, through spiritual exercises, capture the tefillin, impossible. When you're doing a physical act, which is so much lower, you capture the essence of the tefillin. You capture the essence. Why? Same idea. Everything that's very high comes down in a lower form. So because Torah and mitzvahs is so personal and so intense and so intensely holy, it translates down here. It can only come down in a coarser vessel, and you can grab it. In a more refined vessel, you can't take it. The slabshu begashmi is that uberuchnius ein derech lasigam. Spiritually, you can't reach them. I'm bezebetoy rob der maskav rom lo yadanu. Kamoy ken yuven inyan apishten. Oh, so now take a look. Let's take a look at linen. Linen, we were giving it a bad rep. Linen, we're saying linen is what? From the side of Cain, the side of Cain. It's the side of unholiness. He says no. Linen in its source is very high. It's actually higher than the source of wool. Wool, he says, wool is God's hair. It says Saresha is here, is wool, white wool. Well, Hashem's scalp, which is higher than the hair. The scalp itself, which is higher than, it's the whiteness beneath the hair. That's the linen. A Yovan, and it's infinitely higher than the hair. It's very high. Where do we see that linen is so high? Who dresses himself in linen? The Kohen Gadol, the high priest. When he goes into the Holy of Holies, he wears linen clothing, not wool. Nemar Ksoines Bad Kodesh Yilbash. And it says Bad Kodesh, holy linen. So linen is so holy. The Efsher, and it's possible, it's even higher than wool. Because the wool is rooted in God's hair. The Habad and the linen, Yesh Loimar, we can say, Shorshoy, its root may etzem loiven elyon, from the essence of the supernal whiteness. Shalamaylam abchenes, it's higher than the white hair. Here is just an expression of that whiteness. This is small extensions of it. Kemoy lavnunis de galgalta, it's like the whiteness of the scalp, of the skull. Kadein kamtsa de lavusha menei, and it's like the snail that's garment is one with it. So the whiteness of the linen is totally. Shezeu levush habadim. This is considered the dressed in linen. This is the type of, it's a garment, but it's one with the source, mamish. I am bebira pasuk shchayran even nava b'inyan, and similar to that, shahaloy sasei gavoyam and mitzvah sasei. We also speak about this all the time in Chassidus, that a prohibitive commandment is higher, takes us to a deeper connection to God than a positive commandment. Even though it's involving dark things, keeping away from dark things. But you can't connect to such a level of holiness unless you encounter a dark thing that you reject. Why? Because dafka, the lower things, are somehow rooted and connected. Oh, another proof. He wants to prove that the losa says that the badim, the linen, is higher than the tzemer, than the wool. He says positive commandments are rooted in God's hair. All mitzvahs. Yain shah. That's why tzitzis, which is like hair, it reminds you of all the mitzvahs. Because all mitzvahs are rooted in Hashem's hair. But the losa says, the prohibitive commandments, that are related to the linen. Elishahi anesenes. That's the way it works. But when the linen finds its way down here, not in the temple, when you find linen anywhere else around the world, it's related to klipa. Now, by the way, there's no prohibition of wearing linen. You can wear linen from today till tomorrow. You're not doing anything wrong. It's only mixing it with the wool that's when you're causing the problem. When it comes down here and shattering the vessels, this Slabish dafka b'pchenas kayin, this powerful power of linen, which is so high, became enclosed in Kain's world. Valderech, example similar to Sheyesh loiven elyon de kedusha. There's the supernal level of Lavan, who's a supernal whiteness. Pchenes va'atik yoimim is the ancient of days, and how does he appear in this world? as Lavan ha'arami, the wicked Lavan. That's the thing. Anything from such a high place falls down. V'yesh Lavan ha'aramai, and there's Lavan, Yaakov's father-in-law. He's the biggest cheat and the biggest con artist. Lavan the klipa. In some crazy way, when very high things make their way down here, they fall down in a very corrupted way. Yeah, Lavan is rooted in the supernal whiteness. That's why he has daughters like Leah or Rachel. All right? That's why it really says in Kizvei Arizal that even Cain is really higher than his brother Hevel. The Shirish Cain l'mayla gavoyim mebchinas Hevel. So the Arizal says that Cain and his source is really higher than his brother Hevel, even though Hevel is the tzaddik and Cain is the rasha, the wicked one. Shirish Esav, similar to Esav, ma'olam ha'to'u comes from the world of chaos, shalamayla ma'olam ha'tikun de Yaakov, which comes from a higher world of tikun of Yaakov. Shehu gamken kamashal aryeh v'shor, it's the same idea like the lion and the ox. Kamashal kaseh b'Torah or parshas vayishlach. And therefore, linen as it's down here is problematic, but when you bring it into the mitzvah and tzitzis, or when you bring it into the Beis HaMikdash, you're elevating the linen to up there, and up there it's not a klipa. So over there it's mixed. It's not mixing klipa and kedusha. It's mixing chesed and gavur. It's okay. Elachei betzitzis or Beis HaMikdash. Ozaya pishtin. Over there the pishtan, the linen, me'ein shehu b'sharshay, is reflecting its source. Shamu min b'minai. Over there it's one type and the other type, which are the same type. It's a mixture of the same thing. Imsa reishe ka'amer naki. You're mixing the hair with the scalp. As we said earlier, where the hair comes from, that's okay. Another example. You're not allowed to turn on a fire on Shabbos anywhere, but in the Beis HaMikdash, they lit fire in the Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos in the course of the work. They were allowed to do so. Bekarbanos. Yeah. No. They put on the fire on the mizbeach. It's a mitzvah. That's right. V'chein, another one. Bekarbanos v'aroyos lamayla. Prohibited marriages, where you're not allowed to marry a sister. A brother and a sister can't get married. A father and a daughter can't get married. These are all they're considered the worst types of relationships. And yet, in the supernal worlds, these are the holiest unions. Yeah. In Atzilus, in the world of Atzilus, in the world of emanation, brother and sister is married. Because the Er Anpen and Malchus are brother and sister. That's a brother and sister. They're the energy of brother and sister, and they're married. It's not an analogy. That's the real brother and sister. It's even more brother and sister than we're an analogy on that. It's real brother and sister. And sometimes it says on the highest days, there is a union between Chachma and Malchut. That's father and mother, father and daughter have a relationship. And over there it's holy. Down here it's the worst corruption. Certain things are so holy they can't be translated down here. And when they get translated down here, it comes in a broken way. Look in these places. This will understand why it's permissible to have klayim and tzitzis. After the sin of the tree of knowledge, Cain becomes the nest. Cain is from the word kan, a nest, kiyakare kan, but he becomes the nest for all the klipot. V'nifrad mehevel, he became separated from hevel. As they existed before the sin of the tree of knowledge, it was in a state of hod v'hadar lavashta. There wasn't at all this level. They were still different. Cain was gevur and Hevel was chesed. They're both unified. They're all considered right. Example. Michael, Malach Shel Sheleg. Michael, the archangel Michael, who's the king of snow, He's made up of snow. Where it says he gives snow like tzamer, like wool, again, chesed side. Vigavriel, and Gavriel, who is what? Fire, opposite of snow. And what clothing does Gavriel wear? Levush habadim. He wears linen clothing. Michal wears woolen clothing. Michal, because he's made up of snow, and by snow it says Hanoisein sheleg. Hashem gives snow katsamer, like wool. So snow and wool is associated with each other, and it's related to the angel Michael. Gavriel is the malach of fire, and related to what? To linen. It says by Yecheskel, he saw the angel come dressed with a measuring stick, and he gives him the measurements of the Beis Hamikdash. Against all the power of Gevura, measuring. Who is it? Gavriel. And he's wearing linen, because linen is the power of din, of judgment, all that. B'medrash Rabbah Pashas Reishis. But yet, so Hareihem Kamoy Tzemeru Pishtim. Michal and Gavriel are like wool and linen. And what do we say? Oseh Shalom, Hashem makes peace between Michal and Gavriel. V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Oseh Shalom Imroimav Bei Michal and Gavriel. B'medrash Rabbah B'shir Hashirim Pasuk Tze'ener Ena B'noisim B'melech Shloimoi. Why is Hashem called the king that makes peace? Melech Shasholim Shaloi. He makes peace. In Israel, for example, the same klippas that want to take away all the boundaries, in Israel itself, they want to create where there is not supposed to be boundaries. They want to create a border. You understand the opposite? Eretz Yisroel is one country, and it's a land belonging to the Jewish people. They want to make a border and make it into a two-state. Yes. And mix the land, half for Jews, half for this. It's a mixture. On the one hand, it's a mixture. And on the other hand, it's creating a boundary that should not be a boundary. It's fakir. And that's why, they're talking about peace. And the current administration, which again, he's as I see it, is just a power to pave the way for Mashiach, is saying, no, we have a whole new plan for peace. I don't know exactly what the plan is, but you see Netanyahu is now saying that now we have an opportunity based on the current Trump's plan for peace that we're now going to annex the whole Jordan Valley. Annex means we're going to announce that the whole Jordan Valley is part of Israel. Today we had already a protest from 5 nations of Europe. 5 of the 5 Gevurot. Who are they? Let's guess. France and Germany. France and Germany and Italy. Who else? The other 2? I forgot already. Norway, probably. Anyways. And Britain, okay. How can it be, he's asking? Wool and linen is shatless down here. And up there, Hashem makes peace between wool and linen, between Michal and Gavriel. Down here, there they can be together. Which is that's related to the next Maimer, where he explains how tzitzis are called gidulim, because it's related to Hashem Elokai gidalta, to the greatness of God. Shoyakoidim chet eitzadas, it's before the chsin. Alkin sham roilias chibur tzemer upishtim. Over there, it's fitting that the two should be unified. Al derech oisa shalom emroimal beimachal veGavriel canal. V'zeu in gedilim chibur avaya va'adna al yedei aksharim, through the ties, emes igadol kshul be'ir, all that kind of unification. Okay. So we have to bring it together in a godly way, the way the Eibishter wants things together, and that's the way things will work. It will not work in any other superficial way. That doesn't work. So l'chaim, everyone. Okay. Ooh, 1 second. So I have to.